Hello, everyone. This is JPL, and today I'm joined with.
Jay.
And Christopher
Yes, and we are podcast name in
in
brackets.
brackets.
We're back with our monthly edition of the top five, and this month we'll be talking about the top five films of the year 2009. I don't have like an overall beginning for this. I don't recall. I don't recall this film specifically for film. It was just another year. Uh, Bionicle did some cool stuff this year. That's what I remember. But films, I guess we'll talk about the films this year. So yeah,
Yeah,
Jay.
it's weird because there weren't any major superhero films, at least that I can remember off the top of my head.
All right.
So it's interesting. Just looking at the top 10 at the worldwide box office, there were only five sequels in the top 10 worldwide. And we actually saw like completely original films, Avatar in 2012 and Up and The Hangover, all making a pretty big impression. And yeah, Avatar becoming the highest grossing film of all time, which a record which it has kept except for a few years when Avengers Endgame was. But then Avatar was re-released and now it is back in that top spot. So yeah, interesting year for the top 10. In terms of Oscars, we also this is the first year since the 1940s to have more than five nominees. This was they never said it specifically, but it's speculated that this is as a result of The Dark Knight and also Wally being snubbed the year before, that they expanded the category to get a few more interesting picks in. And there were some really interesting films. Avatar showing up again here was considered the front runner for a little bit, but the ultimate winner was The Hurt Locker, directed by James Cameron's ex-wife, Catherine Bigelow. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, apparently they're on amicable terms, but yeah, interesting race there. Yeah, fascinating year for Best Picture, and we might be talking about some of these films further down. And then
Mm-hmm.
just a preview of the other awards going on. The Palme d'Or winner was The White Ribbon, and the Razzie Worst Picture winner was Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. I would say a pretty deserving one. The Golden Lion went to Lebanon, which I haven't ever heard of that one, but the MTV Movie of the Year went to The Twilight Saga: New Moon. So that's sort of what was popular in the art house segment, and then what was popular and unpopular in the more popular film sector.
All right. Well, let's get started with our number fives.
Yeah. So my number five is a very controversial pick. This is S. Darko, written by Nathan Atkins and directed by Chris Fisher. This is the much maligned sequel to the cult classic film Donnie Darko. I'm a big fan of the original Donnie Darko. I think it's a lot of fun. I actually just recently saw it in the theater, and that was an incredible experience. It's more comedic than I had remembered it being, which is always fun to see. But yeah, S. Darko came out 8 years later. Different writer, different director. The original writer and director was not involved at all in this production, which I think is where a lot of this animosity towards it comes from. And I'll state right up front, this is not as good as the original Donnie Darko, but I think it is interesting in its own right. It's kind of a remix of the characters and themes and ideas of the original. It has a completely different setting, a completely different tone, just fascinating, weird stuff going on. I don't know if all of the plot stuff makes sense if you lay it out and think about it, but there's something in that sort of ephemeralness that I find very interesting. Feels like it's commenting on America as a concept in a way that I find interesting. It also has just like a really, really phenomenal score by Ed Harcourt. Very haunting, very beautiful. Yeah, I sat down to watch this having very low expectations, having heard so incredibly negative things about it. I think on Letterboxd it has like a 1.5 out of 5-star average
1.6.
rating. Yeah, which is incredibly low. Like it is in the top 10 lowest films that I have ever seen on Letterboxd. But I thought it was incredible. I made a friend of mine who is also a fan of Donnie Darko. I made her sit down and watch this with me because I was like, "Am I crazy?" And we both walked away, be like, "No, there is something here. This is better than the reviews have it seem." I assume neither of you are familiar with this one.
Oh, John loves that movie.
Oh, you know me. I rant about it all the time. You know, every time we talk, I'm like, ah, yes, S. Darko. I remember that film. Oh,
Well
2009, an
70s.
amazing year. No, I have not seen this, nor have I seen the original film. So, yeah.
Yeah, same with John.
If you can see the original in a theater, like it's weird and mind bendy, but it's also like funny. Anyway,
I definitely do want to watch the original at some point. But very, very intriguing with what you said. I will take that into consideration whenever I do, after I watch the original.
yeah, I do feel like expectations need to be managed for this one because it's very different, but I think the differences are very interesting. Maybe that's just me. Apparently, it is just me, but I
Well,
think it
hey,
deserves to
you
be
got a
mentioned
friend
here.
to
Yeah.
be in somewhat alignment. My number 5 is a movie called Castaway on the Moon, a South Korean movie. About a man who, okay, so it's probably the Han River in South Korea. So it's this big river that runs through Seoul. And so, there are bridges across it. And obviously there's civilization on either side, but, there's little splotches of land throughout, said river. Um, and this man attempts suicide but gets washed up on one of those islands, and he can't make his way back to civilization, and so he is sticking it out on his own in the middle of civilization, but so far away at the same time. He can see the cars driving by on the bridge. um, there's washed up items, and yeah, so very fascinating concept. Um, so I don't want to say too much more, but it definitely explores that idea about human connection um, as it progresses. Um, I will say it's quite loved on Letterboxd, around the 4.0 average, which is pretty incredible. I am gonna be honest, it didn't strike me as it seemed to have other people, but I still really did enjoy the movie, and I do recommend it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard of this one, but there may or may not be a film upcoming on my list that could also have the title Castaway on the Moon.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know me. You know me. I've not heard or seen this one. But moving on to my number 5, we have Hulk versus Wolverine. Now, this may technically might not count as a film. It is, but it isn't. It's 40 minutes long, so it's very short. It released as a double feature of Hulk versus, and the other one is Hulk versus Thor. But I like this one more. Um, it's just like 40 minutes animation of like Wolverine tracking down Hulk, them fighting, them doing stuff together, um, telling that classic comic book story there that they're doing. Uh, it for like Marvel animation, this is their best stuff. This is their one great thing that they've made. They've done other stuff for straight to DVD stuff, but like this one just goes so on a different level. It's like it's what people really wanted to see with Hulk and Wolverine together. Um, and yeah, and I really enjoy those 40 minutes. And they're really cool. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, hearing that this is actually a top tier version of Marvel animation does, because when I was looking at your list, John, to be honest, every time I look at your list, I'm like, okay, are these on John's list because they're good or because those are the ones that he has seen? So hearing that you do genuinely recommend this one is making me more interested than I might have been otherwise.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, to be fair. But I'm not on the same level as Christopher, who has only seen 5 or 6 films of those years. Anyway,
That's fair.
moving on.
Yeah. So speaking of Castaway on the Moon, my number 4 film is Moon. This is, of course, directed by Duncan Jones and written by Nathan Parker. And in this, Sam Rockwell plays a miner who is about to finish up a 3-year solitary stint on the moon. But something goes wrong during a routine checkup on one of the mining vehicles, and he wakes up in the infirmary to a revelation that makes him question his entire existence. I'm not going to say what that revelation is. Odds are, if you have heard about this film before, you might already know what the thing in this movie is. But I think I already had it spoiled when I saw this. But I do imagine that the surprise of what happens and the sort of slow unfolding of what is going on this moon base, even just knowing going in, there's just so much interesting stuff going on here. This was a major cult hit, and its reputation has only grown since, despite Duncan Jones coming out with a few films that aren't all that great. I think Mute, his 2018 or 17 film, was my least favorite of that year, which I talked about on this podcast way back when that came out. Which I hadn't actually seen this until now. So going back and watching this, it's like, oh, it makes me want to revisit that one to see if I was missing something in that one. But I do kind of think that this is generally considered his best film. And yeah, it's just weird and ambitious and mind bending, but it's also kind of fun. Like, Sam Rockwell's performance is so good. He's basically the only person on screen for most of the film, and he has to carry this entire film. And he just does such an incredible job at it. Like, this was before he was as major of an actor as he is now. So to see him get this much of a showcase is just absolutely incredible. I highly recommend this one to anyone who is interested in sci-fi or mind bending or Sam Rockwell as a performer. John, you've heard of
I've
this
not.
one, right?
I've heard of it. I've heard of it via like I saw the poster, and I was like, that kind of looks like a film I might enjoy. I have not seen it, but it's on my radar to see it sometime. So yeah, it's up my alley.
Yeah.
Letterbox is somewhat indicating that Mute is related to the moon.
Yes, there is a cameo by Sam Rockwell's character in Mute,
Gotcha.
which is
Gotcha.
actually part of how I knew what happens in Moon, because there is a reference to the. It's not.
So
I don't
did
want
you
to call it.
watch Mute first?
No. Watch
Okay.
Moon first if you watch the
No, no,
two.
no. But did you?
Oh, I did. Yes, I did. I
You
did.
did. So that's kind of why Moon was somewhat
Yeah.
spoiled for you. That makes sense.
Which I think I also had just heard the twist. It's happens pretty early into the film, but I had heard the twist just mentioned. So, yeah. But no, even if you know the twist, this is worth getting around to for Sam Rockwell's performance. And like, the filmmaking is really good, the visual effects are really good. It's fun, it's weird, it's mind bendy. Yeah.
All right, Christopher, moving on.
Yeah. I put Sherlock Holmes as my number 4. RDJ as Sherlock Holmes. That is an experience in and of itself. So that's fun. This is the first time I believe I've seen a Guy Ritchie film, so it was interesting. Um, my roommate is a pretty big Rachel McAdams fan, so I actually got this for him. Um, but as time has gone on, I've also appreciated Rachel McAdams myself, and so she's fun in this as well. Yeah, it's a fun movie. I don't have too much to say about it. Really, I know I watched it last year, but I don't really know much else to say necessarily. Like, it's somewhat self-explanatory what you're getting from it. If you're not a fan of Guy Ritchie or RDJ, then there's chances that this may not jive for you. But if you like one of those two things, then probably a chance that you will enjoy this. And so, I again unfamiliar with Guy Ritchie, but so definitely went in for RDJ. Very fascinating. I'm not too familiar with all these different looks at Sherlock Holmes, um, but very fascinating seeing a different uh, interpretation of Holmes than maybe I'm more somewhat familiar with.
Yeah, this version really emphasizes the sort of street level um, aspect of Holmes, which is there in the books as well. I think a lot of Holmes adaptations tend to take him a little bit more posh, whereas this one is definitely, as a Guy Ritchie film, is more interested in the street level stuff. Um, yeah, I haven't seen this one in several years, but I remember really liking it when I did see it. Just the energy and the style and the humor of it really makes it stand out from this was around the same time. John, when did BBC Sherlock start? Was that 2010?
2010, 2011. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting that there are sort of these two very popular versions of Sherlock Holmes that are existing simultaneously and end up going in very, very different directions. And yeah,
Hmm.
they keep teasing that there might be a third of these that comes out, and I would very much like to see that.
Hmm.
Yes. Um, I enjoyed this for the most part. I'm not the biggest fan of the antagonist through most of this film. But once we got to like the big twist reveal where Sherlock explains everything at the end, I'm like, okay, now I get it. Now I'm fully on board. But like throughout the film leading up to that, I was not 100% into this. But by the end, it does get me. But yeah. Moving on to my number 4 is the animated film Turtles Forever. So this is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film that is my favorite perspective of the multiverse. And this is what I point to as like a great example on how to handle multiverse stuff. So, uh, as I am alluding to, this is a turtles, but like they're meeting other turtles from a previous incarnation. So we have the '80s cartoon meeting the 2003 cartoon, also meeting the classic Image comic versions of these characters. So it was really fun to see all these characters interact and seeing the different ideas in the villains and just how the different animation looks in this. There is some writing choices that are not my favorite, or I'm fine with it. But like most people didn't like how some things were done, but yeah, I think it's just epic and cool and just goes so it does what I think multiverse should do by the end. So yeah.
Yeah, the different sort of animation styles is making me curious to see this one, having never heard of it prior to this. I obviously I've heard of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but not turtles across the Turtleverse. But yeah, no, this sounds like when eventually we do our TMNT for binging Barbie, I would be curious to see this one.
Hmm. Yes. It is a bitter experience having watched the shows, but whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, TV and I don't get along.
yeah.
Yeah. So my number 3 is Up in the Air. This is directed by Jason Reitman, written by Reitman and Sheldon Turner, based on the novel by Walter Kern. This is one of the Best Picture nominees of the year. Actually, I just saw it for the first time last night. I've been aware of it because it's a Best Picture nominee, but didn't really know much about it. I actually thought it was about an airline pilot until I actually started the movie and was like, oh, this isn't about an airline pilot. Um, but yeah, George Clooney stars as a man whose job it is to travel around the country and fire people. There's more going on there, but that's basically the gist of it. And he reluctantly takes on a young woman played by Anna Kendrick as his protege, and he also strikes up a flirtationship with a fellow nomad played by Vera Farmiga. And through his relationship with both of these women, he begins to question the way that he's been living his life and his life philosophy. And yeah, as you could probably tell, I went in with basically no expectations for this and was pretty immediately won over. Like, George Clooney is so good at playing a guy who is really good at a job that you've never heard of. Like, he does this in Michael Clayton, he does this here. I'm sure there's other examples that I'm forgetting right now, but he just has that, like, the charm and the confidence to pull this off. But then this whole film is about kind of looking into that and being like, hey, is there something deeper going on with this character? And there ends up being a lot of emotional depth to not just his character, but all of the side characters and the roles that they play in the story. And this was released in 2009. So it's also very directly dealing with the financial crisis around this time because George Clooney's character is the one who has to fire people. Um, so yeah, it's very directly dealing with the results of that. And yeah, it's just it's fun, it's funny, it's poignant, it's dramatic, there's some darkness, there's a lot of fun. I just had a great time as someone who has spent a decent amount of time in airports. There's some really fun stuff with that, but this is like anyone should be able there's stuff in here for everyone to connect to, whether you have spent time in airports or not.
You know me. I've not heard or seen this film, but I am slightly curious about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Interestingly,
fine.
this is I can't think of any other time this has happened, that this is the year in which two of the or one of the Oscar Best Picture nominees contains the entire title of another in its title, because Up was also nominated this year,
Oh.
and, Up in the Air.
Seems like a running theme this year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With Castaway on the Moon and Moon.
Hmm. Um, I'm intrigued because it's the same director of Juno.
Yes, yeah, I didn't say that, but this is Jason Reitman, who is, and I believe this is his follow up to Juno as well, sort of
Hmm.
his blank check after the success of Juno. It is a different writer, so it is different,
Mm.
but it has a lot of the same charm to it.
All right.
Uh, yeah, forgot it was my turn. It's my turn. I have. This is my controversial opinion, um, and I don't care. I really do enjoy X-Men Origins Wolverine. Um, First, I will say I'm unbridled from comic book love. Didn't grow up reading them. I don't care. Um, I think sometimes one of the greatest issues with MCU discourse is it's not like the comics, and it doesn't have to be. The comics are very much a template, and there are some good stories that do come from the comics. But it should be painfully obvious at this point that nearly 20 years into the MCU, that they don't really follow comic book lore that, you know, that, to a T that maybe some people expect them to be. So whenever we get this movie announcement or a character is supposed to be in it and it turns out being different, people are upset and annoyed, which again, I do understand. I understand the want for proper adaptations. Um, I'm just saying that, just putting it out there. Um, I understand um, why people feel this way about Deadpool. I genuinely do. For me, it works well enough for the movie. And we got our Deadpool movies. So, again, I watched this a couple of years ago after Deadpool 1 and 2 had released. So, it wasn't like I was waiting for a Deadpool adaptation. So, there's that. Just thought I'd get that out of the way. I watched, I was going through the X-Men movies in release order. And I think I was mostly indifferent about the first, about the trilogy. Again, I'm very open to revisiting them, especially after hearing Jay talk about them in earlier episodes. Also thought about revisiting them before Deadpool Wolverine, which I didn't, and to some degree, kind of glad I didn't because it wasn't necessary. um, but I'd known that a lot of people were fans of Wolverine. I didn't get it until this movie. Until there's that scene where the helicopter explodes behind him and he's walking away from it. And in that moment, I was like, I get it. I get it. I get why people love Wolverine. Also, I've not seen my fair share of action movies from the 2000s. So while this movie may seem very cliche to a lot of people, it does not for me. It definitely doesn't necessarily feel fresh, but it's not like I've seen 100 different versions of this movie before. Um, so with all that, I enjoy this movie. It's fun. Again, like I said, I'm not brittled by the comics. This is what helped me get Wolverine, and overall, it's just a fun time. And I actually showed this movie to my roommate, and I don't necessarily know if he gave it 4 stars like I did, but he also really enjoyed it. I'm like, yes. So we've never been more back.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up. I wonder if, before I get into my general thoughts on the movie, but I do wonder if people revisited this today, now that there are like things that are like interpretations of Wolverine in Wolverine movies that are widely considered to be really good. And there are
Mhm.
also good Deadpool movies. I wonder if that kind of takes the pressure off of this one a little bit. In the way that like the David Lynch Dune movie was so widely hated until the Denis Villeneuve version of Dune came out, and then people are like, "Oh well, now that there's a good version of Dune, we can be a little bit nicer to the version of Dune that we didn't like." Um, yeah. As for my own, I have not seen this one since I was young, and I don't necessarily trust my opinion of it back then. I do remember enjoying it, but it was never one that I rewatched a lot. I will say that my sister really likes this movie, so there are people out there who really do like this. And again,
Hey,
I
sister.
wonder if revisiting it now I would have a different feel for it. Because yeah, around the time when this came out, especially, and even in the years after, this was just a hated beyond hate film. And again, I think a lot of that may have softened now that there are interpretations of these characters that are a little bit closer to what people wanted.
Yeah, I personally hope so. I also do wonder if now we're gonna have this like Star Wars prequel generation starting to come up and say, "I grew up on this Wolverine movie. I love this movie." We're probably gonna see the same thing with the Star Wars sequel movies in
Yeah.
10 years. So I definitely do wonder if nostalgia is gonna start playing a factor in some people's opinions of this. But yeah, I hope that some people can move past the past barriers of expectations and just again, as much as I gave a pretty thorough defense of why I like this movie, it isn't going to be one of the movies I'm going to try to defend to the death. There are other movies I'd rather do that for. But I definitely do hope that for people who are able to have fun, I hope that they're able to have fun with this. And yeah, if you want a better Wolverine movie, there are two after this. If you want a better Deadpool movie, there are two after this. You want a better Deadpool and Wolverine movie, there's one after this. I have thoughts about those. I mean, okay, I'll be honest. I'm not the craziest about the Deadpool movies. The second one's my favorite of the three. Um, I I kind of like Origins more than the Wolverine. Obviously, Logan's a masterpiece, but I still do like the Wolverine. So, also, I will say, again, I think it's an interesting depiction of Deadpool. I think just as much as what I said with like Fantastic Four 2 with Galactus as a cloud, I think it's a very interesting idea. I kind of like it. And again, now we're going to get a more accurate representation of Galactus. So that's one thing. But like for the story that they wrote for Silver Surfer movie, it made sense to me. Like, Earth is going to be swallowed up by a cloud, wild, but I'm here for it, kind of thing. And so, kind of like Ryan Reynolds is yapping at the beginning, just like Deadpool would, and then he can't. I just, I kind of think it's interesting. I didn't say it's great. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna argue that it's great. I just think it's interesting. I think there's some movies I watch that I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily see this as cinematic excellence. Like recently this year, the movie Until Dawn, a lot of people don't like. Um, Understandably so, because it's so different from the video game. Again, I am unbridled from the video game, and I'm not going to defend Until Dawn claiming it's the greatest movie. But I had fun with it for what it presented, and so I argue the same with this. So
Yeah, far be it from me to cast aspersions, having just put S Darko, which is, I think that has a lower score than X-Men Origins Wolverine
yeah, I'm
on
curious where
Letterboxd.
Wolverine is.
Yeah, I don't know that they're far apart, but John,
Mm-hmm.
what are your thoughts on this one?
I've never hated this film growing up, but I will say that I did find it boring for a lot of times. And I think part of it has to do with just their choice of like the muted colors, like being dull and such. But I do like a lot of the action. I think the bone claws were an interesting idea. I think the relationship between him and Sabretooth is probably the better aspects of this film. Yeah, sure, this does have some pretty bad VFX. Um, Bathroom scene is the one to look at, but yeah, I can enjoy it for what it is. Um, do things not make sense in the timeline? Sure, but whatever. It's like you said, we've had
I mean,
better,
nothing makes sense in the X-Men timeline.
but this was like the first one that really like screwed things up.
Okay,
And then
that is fair.
of course the next couple of years we got followed up with our prequel series. Um, but yeah, it's another film with some cool Wolverine action, and as a kid, all I cared was the cool Wolverine action, and so yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
So S Darko has a 1.6 and X Men Origins Wolverine has a 2.5.
Ooh,
Okay, yeah. Like I was saying, S Darko is not there. There is, as far as I can tell, no movement to reclaim that one. Where besides me, whereas I think X Men Origins Wolverine has a bit more.
All
And
right.
I only hope it'll grow.
I would assume so, as the people who grew up with it reevaluate it.
Sure. Or just new people like Christopher who had no context, just watch it and being like, ah, sure, I like this now. Anyway, moving on to my number 3, I have a DC animated film called Superman Batman Public Enemies. Um, I think this is one of the best interpretations of just the friendship between Batman and Superman. Like, they are just really great friends in this one, constantly just making cracks at each other. It's like the best on-screen representation of their relationship, where they actually do care for one another as friends. Um, which I wish we could see more in live action. We never got to see that in the Snyder films, obviously, because that wasn't what they were going with. But yeah, this is an interesting look. This is a film that the original comic, when it was made as a critique of the Bush administration, and so here in this film we follow Lex Luthor as he becomes president of the United States, and there's some subtle political hints going on in the background. None of the stuff that I caught because I never grew up understanding what's going on in the Bush administration. But yeah, I like a lot of the action. I like a lot of the characters. There are some choices that or maybe a little dated, but overall, I think it's just like a fun time with interesting looking character designs, um, art style, yeah, even some obscure characters as well. So yeah,
Yeah, another childhood critique of the Bush administration you didn't catch on to when you were a kid. I'm speaking you in general, not you, just you, John. I'm also speaking me in general because I'm going to mention the aforementioned Star Wars prequel trilogy as well. Um,
yes,
yeah, no, I have not heard of this one, though I think I might own it just because I bought a big DC animated collection for like $10 a bit ago.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I at some point I would be interested in eventually watching this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of these animated fairs that John has brought up.
Well, moving on.
Okay, yeah, my number 2 is Xavier Dolan's debut film, I Killed My Mother. This follows a high schooler and his turbulent relationship with his mother. There is no actual death involved in this film. The title references how he pretends that his mom has died to get out of a school project, and then in a very comedic scene, his mom shows up at the school and chases him around the halls, going, "I'm not dead." um, but yeah, no, this is a fascinating film. It's incredibly open and honest. It's somewhat memoiric to Dolan's actual life, um, but it's just so fascinating, and especially because this film was written when he was 16 years old, and he directed and starred in the film when he was 19.
Hmm.
So absolutely incredible work from someone so young, and it has like a very clear purpose and a clear vision of what it's about. um yeah, it's so fascinating. It's charting this very turbulent up and down relationship and examining it from all of these different sides. And yeah, I just found it so engaging. And yeah, even just for someone so young, this is impressive. But for any filmmaker, this would be a very impressive work. And yeah, I have seen, I think, a couple of his other films, and I am looking forward to, as we go through these, I'm going to be watching his films and catching up on his work because this is a very stunning debut.
Yeah. Again, you know me.
This is your favorite film of the year, John. You have heard of it before now and enjoy it very much.
Of course.
I haven't seen it either. but I believe it's in my watch list.
Okay.
My number 2 is my first exposure to Wes Anderson, Fantastic Mr. Fox. This is not necessarily the situation with She's the Man. I almost said She's All That. She's the Man. Where that I started watching, couldn't do it, and returned to it 2 years later. This, though the gap was longer, this was probably a year or two after the film's release, where I was at school and some the movie was started, but it barely started. The last thing I remember is when Mr. Fox and I think the real estate guy or boss were like going around the table arguing. That was the last thing I remember. So I watched up to that point basically, but for some reason we didn't continue. So that was barely into the movie. But then think about I I'd have to look on Letterboxd either last fall or the fall before. I was invited to uh, a viewing of this, and it's probably 2 falls ago, um, and so that was my first exposure. Wes Anderson, and I think it's a great, from what I've seen of Wes Anderson, it's a great entry point. I could imagine maybe watching live action Wes Anderson would have been more jarring. Uh, so like kind of understanding his style through the medium animation first, I think was helpful for me. Um, Maybe there's a little bit of the fact that like the first 10ish minutes had lived in my brain for a decade and a half. Maybe that helped as well. I'm not going to say for sure, but regardless, very enjoyable movie. I wish I really had more to say. I don't really know what else to say. It's a lot of people like it for the vibes.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just an enjoyable movie. Um, yeah, Wes Anderson is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one. I I saw this quite a few years ago, probably in high school, and I've revisited it since because it is one of my favorite of Wes Anderson's films. And Wes Anderson is such a particular filmmaker that even though stop motion isn't the main medium that he works with, his style just works so well with it. That attention to detail that he puts into his live action work also really works well with stop motion. And yeah, this is just a really, really fun story as well. And again, this is George Clooney played a character who is charming and a little roguish, and that's always fun. Yeah, fantastic little movie.
Mm.
I do need to rewatch it. I have the Criterion, and I remember very much liking this. So yeah.
Yeah, like you, Christopher, this was my first Wes Anderson film when I watched it. Um, and yeah, I do really like it whenever Wes Anderson does stop motion. I just think that his style just works really well, makes it for a very unique experience. Um, yeah, Wes Anderson, very unique style. Sometimes it's pretty weird, and it kind of translated into this film because it's like it's unlike any other, you could say, quote unquote, family films that has existed out there. So it was just like really weird to see, but it's so much of his style and so charming and fun, that I do hope he does more stop motion.
Yeah, he really understands the medium and what makes it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, again, his style just works so well. This is I need to watch this fall because this is such a good fall movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, moving on to my number 2, we have a Quentin Tarantino film called Inglorious Bastards. Um, yeah, on this could honestly alternate between my number one depending on the day. It's one that when I first watched, I enjoyed, but like I had a huge problem with half the film being in subtitle with like their native language. So that was like my huge critique of the film way back in my stupid high school days where it's like, it's not in English. Reading is hard. Now that I've grown past that and have experienced more foreign films and able to do these subtitles, it's like, yes, very good stuff. Yes. To me, this is Tarantino's best film overall. I just really love the choice of this film, the time period, what he decides to do with the choice. It's so funny as well. Um, and then you have our villain who's just he's so captivating. The first opening scene is just such an intense, fantastic performance, just very memorable. Um, but yeah, Jay, you know more about this than I do.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page with you with this being my favorite of Tarantino's films. I'm maybe less of a fan of Tarantino than some people who really like Tarantino, but I do enjoy most of his films for the most part. But this one just is the perfect synthesis of his the first half of his career and the later half of his career, where I think Django Unchained and Hateful Eight and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood maybe don't quite cohere together as well as this one. This is just, I mean, so much fun, so funny, but also, as you were saying, there are some very, very tense scenes. Um, but yeah, the cast here is phenomenal, as is often the case in Tarantino films. Christoph Waltz, who was at this point an unknown actor outside of Germany, getting his big Hollywood break and knocking it out of the park. He won an Oscar for this film, and I think that was a very deserved win.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is one that I have revisited many times. I have showed it to friends, and yeah, it's fun, it's violent, it's exciting. There's a bit of depth to it as well, but yeah, it's just great.
It's also one that you and I quote to each other a whole lot. Specifically, that one scene at the party is like Gorlami,
Yes,
Arrivederci.
yeah.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt is doing insane things with his accent here. I also really like Michael Fassbender has a great scene in here with also a handful of other actors who I have seen in other stuff since and really enjoy. Yeah, phenomenal movie.
Mhm.
I haven't seen it yet.
All right. Before we move on to our number one, so why don't we talk about our honorable mentions?
Yeah. So I don't have notes written up for these as I usually do, so I'm going to try and keep things brief. I've ordered these alphabetically. That's what I've been doing the last few episodes just because it's a little easier than trying to rank everything. So first up I have Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar. Watching this as a like I watched it on DVD shortly after it came out and was absolutely blown away as like a 10-year-old watching this movie, and it just things that I didn't know were possible in movies. This big sci-fi epic. Um, it's very tropey, but when you allow yourself to experience the emotions the film wants you to experience, it's a very rewarding journey. Um, yeah, and then more recently, I went and saw it in the theater after having not seen it for many years, and saw it in IMAX in 3D, and like you either need to be 10 years old and watch this with the lack of cynicism that a 10-year-old brings to this, or you need to see it in a big screen with the glasses and everything and feel enmeshed in the film. Because yeah, it's built on tropes, but it works so well in what it's doing that yeah, I love it. I did not expect to love it revisiting it, but seeing it in the theater was a phenomenal experience. I also have Dogtooth, Yorgos Lanthimos's breakout film. I only saw this the once, and it is known for being a very difficult film, but I remember being very entranced by it and finding it darkly funny. It's much more difficult than The Favorite and even Poor Things. It's a little darker, a little more sinister, but yeah, if you enjoy Yorgos Lanthimos, this is worth checking out. I also have an early film by Andrew Hay, the British director, called Greek Pete. This is a documentary following the life of a guy living in, I believe, London. Um, it's not going to be for everyone. It's a very explicit film, but it is also a very interesting portrait of this very nice seeming guy. Um, yeah, great documentary. I also have Steven Soderbergh's The Informant, starring Matt Damon. This is about a man who works for a company who I believe it's the CIA start investigating, and so he decides to become an informant for them, and all of the crazy stuff that happens as a result of that. If you love stuff like the Ocean's movies, this is in a similar vein to that in terms of Steven Soderbergh's work. Then I have Armando Iannucci's In the Loop. Now, I know Iannucci for his work on Veep, but this is actually a spin off of a British TV show that's sort of a similar political satire, which I haven't seen, but even having not seen the show, I really enjoyed this film. It stars Peter Capaldi as like this no nonsense, insult hurling British politician, and this series of communication mishaps that become bigger than anything anyone could have predicted. And yeah, like all of Iannucci's stuff, it is. I think it's 2 hours long, 90 minutes long of people just hurling insults at each other while talking about politics, which is a genre that I enjoy. I also have Jennifer's Body. The I this is from the writer of Juno. Speaking since we brought up Juno,
Hmm.
Diablo Cody wrote this. Um, it's sort of a satire horror film starring Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried. I really wanted to like this, and I feel like I need to rewatch this with friends because it seems like so much fun. But while I was watching it, I just wasn't in the right headspace for that. But I did want to bring it up here. Um, then I also have The Secret of Kells. This is the first feature from Cartoon Saloon, the Irish animation studio. And I don't love the story as much as some of their later ones. It is a good story, but I think the emotional beats don't quite land. But the animation is so gorgeous. If you aren't familiar with this one, just watch the trailer. It is incredible. This thing looks like nothing else. And yeah, an incredible first film for Cartoon Saloon, a studio that I very much like. And last up, I have Zombieland, which is a fun zombie comedy. Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, um, Woody Harrelson, Abigail Breslin, just murdering some zombies and having a good time. And yeah, it's a very American version of Shaun of the Dead. It has that sort of the bigger and more explosions and louder, and yeah, it's so much fun.
Of these films, I've only seen two of them, Avatar and Zombieland. Both I have not seen in quite a while, so I don't have much emotional connection to them. But I do remember Zombieland being fun at the time. So yeah,
Did we watch Zombieland together at some point?
we did. We had a group party and we watched
Okay.
Zombieland.
I haven't seen any of these movies. Just one thought with Avatar. So, again, I haven't seen it. I remember when the second movie came out, they did like an Earth Day re-release of the first film, and I remember that. And then afterwards, I kind of got more into movies, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to wait to watch the Avatar movies until they're in theaters again, because if like I saw the third time I saw the a Minecraft movie in theaters. I saw it 3D, and it was just very baseline. Just it just felt like they just like stuck a filter on it and called it a day. And so I'm like, okay, seeing a movie in 3D doesn't mean anything. However, something like Avatar, I believe that it's made for 3D.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm and the IMAX experience. So I'm like, I want to hold off. Um, Avatar: The Way of Water has been scheduled for a re-release this year, and I'm both happy and sad because seems to indicate that the first Avatar is not scheduled for a re-release this year. So I'll probably end up getting a copy of the first Avatar, watching that at home, catching the second one in it for its release, and then catching the third one whenever that releases. So at least I'll be able to catch 2 out of 3 of them in
Yeah.
theaters. In hopefully IMAX. I would like to think it would be IMAX 3D glory. So
Yeah. And I will say, like, online, the response to them, like, the defenders of those movies tend to say they are good theme park movies, as if they only work with the experience of seeing them in the IMAX 3D theater. I disagree with that. I think,
okay,
again, obviously that is the way to see them if you can, but I do
right.
think if you can sort of put aside any cynicism you have going in and just let yourself engage with the emotional story that is going on, rather than, because again, it's built on tropes, the characters aren't super deep, but there is like an emotional journey that they go on that is worth experiencing. And again, that's easier to do in the theater when you don't have
Hmm.
other things potentially distracting you, um or just like, yeah, you're in a dark room with other people who are experiencing the same thing, so it's easier to put aside the cynicism. But I hope it works for you even outside of the theater.
Yeah, I hope so too. My honorable mentions. Um, First is another Korean movie. A Good Rain Knows. At least that's how I'm familiar with it on the Blu-ray case I got. Um, on Letterboxd, it's under Season of Good Rain. Um, Solid movie. I think today would draw comparisons to Past Lives, um, especially in its format. Yeah, definitely could think about Past Lives. I don't always love comparing movies to other movies, but here I am. Solid movie. Um, Shockingly, was majorly in a language that wasn't Korean, that
Mhm.
I didn't expect. Um, Mandy and the Secret Tunnel, I haven't seen in so long. I grew up reading some of the Mandy books. I read at least the first 10, maybe the first 15. I really liked the first 5, but then kind of after that, I was losing interest a bit. Um, but this is a film adaptation of it. I It was enjoyable at the time I watched it. I don't remember more beyond that. So maybe today I'd look at it a different lens. I'm just bringing a piece of my past to you. And then Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs. I think if you recall, in an earlier episode, I talked about my experience with the first Ice Age movie. It's possible I've seen clips of the second movie as well, but Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs is truly the only Ice Age movie I've seen in full, if I remember properly. Um, Again, it was at that school again, and so I think we were like at the end of the school year, and there was nothing left to teach. So what do? Pop on a movie. I think that was the occasion. Um, but I also remember seeing this like a partial second time at that school, so I don't remember which what I just presented was the first or second occasion. Um, the second time I know I only saw like maybe the last 30 minutes or something. Um, yeah, again, just another piece in my past. I don't really have much to say about it. Probably had enough fun with it. That's all I really got. Obviously, Scrat is always the highlight, but I still feel like there was still enough things from it that I enjoyed, but I don't remember much about it. But yeah, just like John said, I basically am presenting to you basically all the movies I've seen from the year.
Yes. Of this, I've only seen Ice Age, which me and Jay have both covered the Ice Age films on our Binging Barbie podcast, so make sure to check out those episodes. This is one where we said some stuff.
Yeah, I that has been long enough between then and now that I don't recall exactly what I said, but yeah, interestingly, I have not seen it, but growing up, my family had a DVD of Mandy and the Secret Tunnel,
Hmm.
and I think it was one of those that like we always intended to watch but never got around to watching. So yeah, I when you put it on here, I didn't immediately recognize it based on the title, but then I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's the DVD we had.
Nice.
Well, moving on to my honorable mentions. First up, I have Green Lantern First Flight, which is an animated DC film about the origins of this Green Lantern, a much better film than the Ryan Reynolds live action interpretation. Does a really solid job. Then we have Harry Potter 7, which is Deathly Hallows Part 1, which is a film that, because they divided it into two parts, this is the boring one with like all the
Are you
content.
sure that's the right one, John?
Did I put the wrong poster?
No, that's the
Oh,
right poster. That's Harry
sorry.
Potter and the Half-Blood Prince that came out this year.
Sorry, I'm thinking of next year. Yes. No, this is Half Blood Prince. Yes. It's the first one I saw fully in theaters, and I remembered it being boring. So, anyway. Then we have Pixar's Up, which has a phenomenal opening sequence. The rest of the film is fun too, but I don't know, it doesn't quite stick with me. Then we have District 9, which is this interesting idea of like, oh, what if aliens showed up and we like left them in this little district and had this, I don't know what you would call this, not found footage, but like a documentary, mockumentary thing about this lifestyle. Then we have the animated film Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is like what's really cool and really fun at the time, which has led to these film directors making a bunch of different really cool films. I think those are Phil Lord Miller, I believe,
Yeah, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who did the Lego Movie and among other projects.
and Into the Spider Verse. Yeah. So then I have the movie 2012. I I love my disaster films, and this was one that I thought was pretty cool, but also when 2012 was coming up, like I had all this going up in my mind. It's like, oh, is this gonna happen or not? Um, you know, when we tell the next generation what happened that year, I'll like put up this film. It's like, hey, we survived 2012. This is exactly what happened. Yes. Then I have J.J. Abrams' Star Trek remake film, which is, without the Star Trek stuff, it is a pretty cool sci-fi action film, but like bit controversial for what they do with the Star Trek lore here. Um, and I don't like how everything Star Trek after this point just had to copy the style of this film. And then lastly, we have Night of the Museum 2, Battle of the Smithsonian. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've actually seen most of these. Harry Potter, I've got into my feelings on Harry Potter before. This one I think was actually the first one that I saw though.
Mm.
Just because I had been reading the books and then we were at the store and this one was available. So I was like, oh, I'll pick that up and watched it. And I haven't seen it in several years, but I do remember liking it a lot more than some of the other later Harry Potter movies. Sort of starting with four, they get a little less whimsical and a little bleaker in a way that I find less interesting. But I do remember this one, just like the visual style of it being very interesting, the way it's using lighting. Um, yeah, Up I haven't seen in many years. District 9, I unfortunately saw a lot of Neil Blomkamp's films when I was 15 or 16, and his films are the types of films that work if you are 15 or 16 and maybe don't work as well if you watch them later. So I do remember liking it. I also liked his two later films, Elysium and Chappie, which are both generally regarded as bad. But again, haven't seen any of those in years, so I can't really comment. Same Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, haven't seen that since I was a kid. 2012, I think I watched that after the year 2012, so
Yeah.
it didn't really stick in my brain as much. And then, yeah, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. That was my introduction to Star Trek as a concept.
Me too.
I don't
Yeah.
have strong opinions on that or Star Trek in general. My one of my sisters is a big Star Trek fan, though, so I am familiar with Star Trek as a concept. I just haven't seen much of it.
The only movie I've seen from the list is Up. I did grow up on the movie Up. I think my mom expressed interest in it, so kind of one of the only quote secular movies we had growing up, and I had watched it a lot as a child, so much so that I haven't had a strong desire to rewatch it for a while. It's getting to a point where I feel like it's almost been long enough where I'm more open to it. Um, Obviously, due to watching it, I do think I found enjoyment from it, but I also don't remember a lot necessarily to give a lot of thoughts, but it's a solid film for sure.
Mhm. Well, with that, let's move on to our number ones.
Yeah. So my number one is Coraline, written and directed by Henry Selick. This is the stop motion masterpiece. Um, it's just so good. I love it so much. It gains so much more depth each time I rewatched it. I actually recently rewatched it for a reason that I won't spoil, since that's going to be a few months before that becomes apparent. Yeah, I just love everything about this film. The designs, the stop motion animation is just so perfect, and it's such a perfect medium to tell this particular story. The sort of spooky, offbeat, Alice in Wonderland inspired, but takes it in a very dark direction. And yeah, it's so complex in how it's dealing with Coraline as a protagonist. She's such a fascinating central character who, yeah, is just so interesting to watch how she deals with this other world that she finds herself in and all of the creepy things going on. Yeah, I'm just a huge fan of this. I love it so much.
Yeah, my history with this film is that I remember seeing it in like a kids magazine, being like, "Oh, upcoming film, that looks interesting." And then I saw it whenever I visited my cousin, and they loved the film, and so they watched it. And the film isn't the most appropriate for younger children. And just this one sequence that's just, I have no idea how they got away with it, how they put it in, but like after watching that, it's like halfway through the film, I was like, I don't think I should be watching this. And so um I like didn't finish the film until just this past month, 15 years later, for something I'm not allowed to talk about. And it was, I'm now more matured and I can experience all the creepy and inappropriate stuff. And yeah, Coraline, great central protagonist, pretty interesting and spooky stuff. Stop motion animation, oh, perfect. It's so amazing. I love this stuff. Um, and that's all I'm going to say for now.
I have also seen Coraline. I'll be honest, I don't love the movie as much as other people do. I saw it for the first time last fall, so semi recent. Um, yeah, I definitely do appreciate it being stop motion and the effort that did go into it, but it didn't. Maybe there might I definitely have heard it being thrown out that it's creepy before. Um,
Mm.
it, and I think it was weird because on one end I didn't think it was as creepy as I thought it was going to be, and on another end I thought it was creepier than I expected it to be for the theoretical audience. So maybe I was a little like thrown back by the weird mismanaged expectation that succeeded, but sorry, that was met but wasn't in a weird way. Not necessarily that I look for movies to be creepy, but I definitely do feel like I uh, have a little bit of a sensitive spot as relates to media for kids, just based on the way I was raised. So maybe I'm just a little mentally more critical. I think there's an element where I can enjoy something for what it is. Like a few months ago, I watched is it Captain Underpants.
Mm.
I had so much fun with. But I just don't know if I'd ever show it to my kids, or at least a young age, because it just deals with enough like inappropriate slash rude humor, especially as it relates to leadership. I just a little questionable. Um, but me, I completely enjoyed it. So I think it's a little odd to some degree. Maybe I wasn't able to divorce it like I was able to, like with Captain Underpants. Um, but yeah, I definitely do appreciate the effort. Maybe it could be a movie that it would take like a second watch for me to appreciate more for what it is. Sometimes that's just what it takes. They're definitely like I wanted to say even like with Castaway on the Moon might be a movie I'd appreciate more on a second watch. So hopefully that'd be the case with Coraline.
Yeah, I will say it is a very rewarding rewatch because there is a lot of complexity to it that you don't necessarily catch the first time through.
All right then. Moving on.
Um, my number one is Bong Joon Ho's Mother. As much as I do believe Parasite is his best film, I rewatched it a few months ago. I'm like, what the heck? This is a masterpiece. There was a moment I was like, did I? Is this overrated? Rewatch it. No, not. It's great. I would argue Mother is my favorite movie of his. Um, so again, I think there can be a difference between the best and your favorite. So um, yeah, I absolutely love Mother. Um, kind of just like that simple idea of a mother loves their child or children so much. They're driven to extremes sometimes, and it's what a movie. I think like the ending was like so effective for me. But I just love the journey as a whole. Um, yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I the first time I saw it was the black and white version. So, and I think it works really well. The second time I saw the color version. I did the opposite with Parasite. First time I saw it was the color, somewhat obviously, and the second time I watched black and white. I think maybe because I watched it so close together, but I wasn't like over the moon about the black and white version of Parasite. But I really, really like the black and white version of Mother. Um, yeah. Then again, I do like black and white things. Also like even Logan. The first time I watched it was in black and white.
Hmm.
Second time in color. And I maybe because I saw the black and white version first, but I really do like the black and white version a lot of Logan. So, but yeah, so similar with Mother. Um, yeah, just what a film! What a film!
Yeah, this is one that I watched for the first time. Actually, I think the day before I saw Parasite, I decided to fill in all of the Bong Joon Ho films that I hadn't seen because I was so excited for Parasite. Um, and yeah, walking away from that watch through, it was actually my favorite of his. Since then, I mean, Parasite, obviously top of the list there, and I actually really also like Okja on rewatch. Um, but yeah, this is just such a complicated and interesting film and a character study of this woman and the lengths she will go to do what she believes is right. And yeah, it's so good. So the cinematography, everything is just incredible. And it takes twists and turns that you really don't expect in a way that is fun but also sometimes upsetting and intense. And yeah, I would highly recommend anyone who is a fan of Bong Joon-ho's films to see this one, or his other films I should say.
And you know me, I have not seen this one.
There's a chance you would get something out of this one.
Maybe you should do a Bong Joon Ho binging Barbie thing to make
Binging
John watch
Bong.
him.
Yeah, I don't
Binging
know if I'd
Bong
be a
Joon
part of
Ho.
that though.
You should force him.
Yeah.
You can't force me. I'm sorry.
Nope.
I think we can.
Yeah, if you
Oh,
can, you'd hate it.
someday.
Like you'd be miserable the entire time. I'd be like, I have film 0 out of 5 because you made me watch it. Um,
Like High School Musical China.
yes.
Oh, yeah, go and check out Binging Barbie. Maybe not that episode, but there are other episodes where John actually wanted to watch the movies, and so they are fun.
Yes. Yes.
And there are
Yes.
other episodes where I didn't make John watch the movies and had guests on, and we had fun.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to my number one, we have Zack Snyder's live action depiction of Watchmen. I think that this is just one of the best like live action adaptations of something in terms of like it being 1 to 1 visually or in like written wise. It's I like things when things are like more close to the original material. I think Snyder's particular visual style works really well for comic book imagery, and I do like a lot of that. I don't think Snyder is the best at writing the most original stuff. I think he's really good at adaptation versus his own ideas. Um, that being said, even though I do think like his visual style is like fantastic, I think there are some deeper themes that get lost in translation, as Snyder's visual style can probably go overboard into the action, and we lose like what the meaning of some of the action is. I do really like the third act change of the story and like how things work together. Um, and there are other adaptations of this story. Like recently, we had like a 2 part animated version that's like they're pretty much the exact same thing but with different styles. Um, yeah, I just think this film looks cool. It has it's interesting too. I almost feel like it was a little ahead of its time. It came out right before oversaturation of heroes, and I think if it came out a little later, it might have a little bit more impact. Um, there are extended cuts versions of those films, which add a lot more. I enjoyed the theatrical version when I first watched it, but some people didn't. Um, yeah, yeah, that's what I'll say about this.
Yeah, I have a complicated history with Watchmen. I read the graphic novel when I was in high school and didn't quite fully understand it. So when I first watched this version of Watchmen, it did adapt the things that I connected with initially watching it as a dumb high schooler. Watching it more recently, this is a very good example of how an adaptation can be faithful to the plot and the visuals of a comic book while completely missing the entire point of what it's actually about.
Hmm.
um, and how it depicts specifically the character of Rorschach, who is not supposed to be the hero that he is presented as in this film. Yet it's clear to me that having revisited both the graphic novel and seen other people talk about this in a way that I, as a high schooler, never would have thought about it. Um, there's just something that doesn't connect here, a mismatch between what Snyder is doing and what I believe it's written by David
Alan
Hayter
Moore.
and Alex say. Oh, the film. Um,
Sorry. Okay.
yeah, what they are doing um, just does not match up at all with what makes the graphic novel so complicated. So yeah, I am, though, like, the visuals of this are undeniably incredible, and like they're the first trailer, which I believe came out in front of The Dark Knight in 2008, is one of the all-time great trailers, to the extent that like they had to print more of the comic book because they were selling out of the comic book because people were so in love with the trailer, just the trailer. Yeah. So anyway, complicated feelings about this one. John and I are sort of on opposite sides of this.
I haven't seen it.
All right. Well, let's continue with this soured mood into our least favorite films.
Yeah. So I initially had a different film here, but I didn't really want to talk about it. For those who are curious, it was Sacha Baron Cohen's Bruno, which, yeah, I anyway, I'm not going
He
to talk
didn't
about that
want to
because
talk about Bruno.
no, I did not want to talk about Bruno. Not at all. So instead, I'm going to talk about a film that I feel like I may be a bit too harsh on, but I also, when I watched it, I just could not stand it. And this is Gaspar Noé's Enter the Void. The we it's I don't know how to describe the plot. A guy is dying and he's having these visions of everything in his life. It's an interesting concept that I find insufferable to sit through. This is a very long movie, and a lot of it is very slow shots of like strobing lights. And yeah, that's not what I go to movies for. This does have like the opening credits to this film are maybe the best opening credits I've ever seen in any film. Like, if you are curious and if you do not have epilepsy, because it's flashing lights, that's all it is. Go into a dark room and like pull it up, full screen it on a screen, and just watch the opening credits. It will like hypnotize you. Like, it is such a I rewatch it every once in a while because it's just like a fascinating experience. It starts out like, it's gonna start out and you're gonna be like, what, really, you're talking about this? But then it hits a certain point and oh, it's incredible, incredible. Favorite opening credits of all time. The movie that comes after it, I didn't care for it. I'll put it lightly there. I know some people really really like this and think it's deep and artistically fulfilling, and I didn't feel that way about it. I will shout out, it has Ali Alexander. I think that's his name. Oh, now I'm forgetting his name. Who is a he's has like two scenes in the film, but he's a musician who I really like.
You know me.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. Um, my least favorite film is called Come What May. Um, I watched this when I was young. I don't remember really anything except for one major thing: the audio. Like, this is just like basic stuff. This isn't like some like, oh man, like the the sound design is like a little weird but not there. This is no, I'm talking buzzing. I don't know how you. Well, here's the weird thing. It goes away as the movie progresses. I was just legitimately thinking a few nights ago, why didn't they just do ADR or something? If the movie sounds better later on, so that means they have access to like some microphones of some sort that it sounded better later. Why is the first half so bleh? Why? I just I could never accept this movie for what it was to any capacity because it couldn't fulfill that basic requirement. Um, I That's all I'll really say about the movie. I don't really have thoughts about it because I don't remember really anything it was supposed to be or present. So all I remember is how annoyed I was about the audio. And yeah, like I don't ever recall hearing a movie with buzzing. What the heck? It's not even a stylistic choice. Again, it dies out as it
Yeah.
progresses. It just the end.
I have not heard of this or seen it, but I will say when I was looking up images for this, one of the images I chose makes this look like a very different movie that I think it's supposed to look like. The middle image on the slideshow for anyone who's watching along. The way these actors are looking at each other is not conveying what I think it's supposed to be conveying.
Yeah. I've never seen or heard this, but like, yeah, hearing about the audio issues, that would sound really annoying while watching it. And I'd be constantly paranoid. I'm like, is this just my copy of the thing? Is this how they filmed it? Like, what's going on? But yeah. Moving on to my least favorite of the year, we have Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen. We've covered the Transformers films on the Binging Barbie podcast. This one, we didn't have a lot to talk about because we didn't like it. I enjoy some action and some stuff, but that's about it. The story is just so bad and just not well constructed. That dialogue is even worse and terrible. Um, Jay, there's a line in this film that just makes you laugh that you that like really speaks to the quality of the writing of this film.
Do you want me to quote it or
Yes.
just I don't know. Am I thinking of, is it the John Turturro line?
No, it's the
No.
title of the
Oh.
film.
Revenge of the Fallen?
Yes. The
Oh,
point of the
what I
film where the fallen like returns and it's like I will have revenge.
Yes, there is a character named the Fallen. And when he shows up, he's like, I will have my revenge. How much more on the nose about the title could you be? Sorry, I had forgotten about this because we talked about this so long ago, and also I fell asleep for like most of the final action set piece. I was awake for John Turturro's line. I do remember that part. That's the most important part. But yeah, no, this was not a film that I in any way, shape, or form enjoyed.
No. Yeah, it is a thing.
Yep.
What about you? You've not seen that yet, Christopher, have you?
I have not. Like I said, after seeing Transformers 1, I have interest in at least seeing the first one, but we'll
Okay.
see how far my interest will go beyond that.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much everything we have for 2009. Any other final thoughts y'all also want to give?
Yeah, interesting year. Oh, I'm just realizing I forgot to put something in my honorable mentions. Oh shoot. Um People who saw the last episode can probably guess. I do really enjoy Twilight Saga New Moon. Incredible like the music that they chose, because the first film, every artist who was featured on the soundtrack of the first film got like a huge boost in like revenue. So for the sequel, they actually like were auditioning bands to be featured on the soundtrack, and it is incredible car listening soundtrack. Just so good. Yeah. Anyway, I binging Barbie. I did an episode with, I believe that one was with Sam from Serious Business, and
A-
yeah, a lot of fun.
Out of curiosity, who are some of the artists that were featured in the
Oh,
movie?
let me look this up. Off the top of my head, Tom York is in it. What's Muse? Muse is in it. They're also in the first one. Um, I don't remember artist names super well.
That's fine.
So, but I will look it up right now because
It's
it is
part of the
like
movie
a lot of,
experience.
yeah, and it is like so many good, and the songs themselves are so good. But yeah, Death Cab for Cutie. I don't know that band.
I've heard of them.
Okay, The Killers.
I don't know the Killers.
Bon Iver is on this.
Okay,
Okay, Go.
I haven't heard of them.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
go.
Oh, Okay, Go. Yeah, Okay, Go. They are on this. Their
Yeah.
song is very good. All of the songs on this are very
Okay.
good. And yeah,
All
I would
right.
highly recommend people listen to the soundtrack at the very least.
Alrighty then. Well, I think that will be it for us until next time with 2010. All right.
Woohoo!
Thank you guys. Woohoo! Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.